Oh, it's Monday. I was going to say it's Sunday, but it's been the long weekend. It's the 29th of May, and I hope you have had a fantastic, lovely long weekend and that you made the most of the sun when it was out. I don't know what it's like where you guys are now, but it's been raining here solidly for the last hour and a half. But that's okay, because that's what books are made for. They're also made for sunshine outside, but they're great for when it's raining as well, because you can read them inside. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'll be taking you through the book post that I've been sent to me this week, and I'll also be reviewing the books that I've read this week. So let's get started. Now, first one in my book post today is, let me just type something on my screen so I can see who's watching in case you want to make notes. If you want to ask me anything during any of these, then do just do it and make a comment, and I'll do my best if I can see it to answer to it. Cool, right, first one in my post bag this week. Okay, now this is from, let me hold it here so you can see it. This is Isabella Ella Costello's Paris Mon Amour. Okay, this is a very exciting and beautiful literary book that I've heard lots and lots and lots of great things about. For those of you who don't know, Isabella Costello is the blogger who runs The Literary Sofa, which is a very well thought of blog within the industry. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. And she is a fan herself of literary work, and she has written a very beautiful book, so I've heard. Now, let me see what this says. One woman, two men, no way out. Look at how gorgeous this cover is, by the way. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's like a smashed lily. I think this must be one of the most prettiest covers I've ever seen. Let me read you what it says on the back. The first time I caused terrible harm to those I love, it was an accident. The second is the reason I'm here. Alexandra has built a new life in Paris, finding happiness she never expected with her husband Felipe. But lately she suspects he has someone else. Can we ever really truly know another person? Felipe values the comfort and intimacy of his second marriage to Alexandra. Hard to believe he'd risk it all. Does anyone know what they really want? Jean-Luc is the son of Felipe's best friend. He wants Alexandra, and once she's involved, there's no way out for either of them. Do we ever stop to think how it's going to end? Paris Mon Amour charts the passion and the price of inescapable desire, obsessive love and devastating betrayals. A sexy slow burn, says Emma Curtis, and will make you want to run away to Paris, says Claire McGowan. Well, I think it sounds beautiful. It also has a lovely smell, and again, it's got a really beautiful cover. I'm really looking forward to reading this one. Have you guys read it? Let me know if you have. Okay, next in my exciting post bag this week, books that have been sent to me, is this one. It's a hardback, that's exciting. Okay, now this is The Orphans by Anne-Marie Neary. Do you know what? I'm really struggling to talk tonight. It's because I'm hot and I haven't drunk enough water. If you're ever going to do anything where you're live, make sure you drink lots of water so your tongue doesn't stick to the top of the mouth like this. So you'll have to put up with me guys doing that, sorry. The Orphans by Anne-Marie Neary. Let me read the back of this. No, I won't. I'm going to read the inside. 8-year-old Jess and her little brother were playing at the water's edge when their parents vanished. Oh, that's a twist, isn't it? Because it's usually the kids that go missing. For hours, the children held hands and waited for them to return, but nobody ever came back. Years later, Jess has become a locker of doors. Now a lawyer, convinced that his sister knows more than she claims, and then bad things start to happen. Oh, that sounds so good. That sounds really, really, really exciting. Now, I'm actually going to be on a panel with Anne-Marie at the Balham Literary Festival, which takes place, I've got it written down so I don't get it wrong, on Saturday the 10th of June. I'm going to be appearing alongside Anne-Marie Neary. This is her new book, and she'll be talking about this one. It's called The Orphans, and it is at least partly based in South London. Also on the panel will be Anna Mazzola talking about The Unseen, which is also based in South London. So if you are in the area, do come along and see us and ask us questions. This is a very pretty book. What do you think? Look at this nice ghostly figure. And I love the fact that it is that twist. It's actually the parents who go missing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that one. Thank you for sending that one in. And next one is of Claire McGowan. I'm going to tell you quietly, it's a secret. Don't tell her that I told you. She's got big deal in the States. I think it's the New York Expo, which is like the equivalent of the London Book Fair, because they're going to show this book something like happy, and Eva all around the show while she's out there, and tell everybody how fabulous this is. This is coming out in the UK as well, but let me read you what it says on the back of this. Have you heard of the 100 Happy Days project? One of those viral internet things? No. Old Annie would have liked such things. New Annie was scornful of projects and plans and lists. It all meant nothing when your life had truly come crashing down around your ears. It's simple, really. You just mean to do one thing every day that makes you happy. Could be little things, could be big. In fact, we're doing one right now. We are? Annie looked around doubtfully at her shabby living room. Breakfast on nice plates. Seeing in the dawn with a friend. Polly raised a cup to the reddening sky out the window, and Annie thought, was it as easy as that? And how could something so small make any difference at all? Can you cram a lifetime's worth of happiness into just 100 days? The protagonists of Something Like Happy do just that, and the result is a magical novel I couldn't put down. That's from a quote from Lorena Scretto, who is the Executive Vice President Global Editorial of Harlequin. I love Americans, they're so much fun. If you're looking for a novel that makes you laugh, makes you cry and gives you hope, look no further than Something Like Happy. That is from the other Vice President of Harlequin. I have no idea how many they have. But I personally am very excited about this. I am super duper excited because I have never had a proof that has rough cut pages before on the ends. Look at how cool that is. I feel like I'm extra special for getting this. Let me see if it says anything else on the inside. It says, dear reader, thank you so much for reading Something Like Happy. I started writing this book because I was intrigued by the 100 Happy Days concept that was flooding my Facebook feed. Usually I would roll my eyes at such things and dry heave a bit whenever I saw #blessed hashtags on my social media. I'm not a naturally positive person. I grew up in Northern Ireland for one thing, and we love a bit of misery. But something about this idea made me think, was it really possible to make yourself happy just by noticing the good things in your life every day? Can you drag yourself up from the bottom and start again? There have been times in my life when, like Annie in the book, I felt I had hit rock bottom. When I was 24, I was diagnosed with cancer, like Polly. Luckily, it was caught early and I recovered fully, but I found it hard to restart my life. Later, I found myself broke and homeless after a marriage broke down. I even got hit by a car as well. Actually, remember when that happened, it was awful. Luckily, I was okay. Both times I realised that doing happy things did make me feel better. Going to dance classes, taking a trip to the beach, even just baking a cake. So yes, I think it is possible to find happiness and hope again, even in the darkest days. There are always good things in the world. I hope that if you're going through a tough time, you might be able to find the same. Thanks for reading, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the book, or if you've been through something similar. And that's signed with love from Eva. Oh, Alison. Oh, hello. She says, last time I couldn't see you. I can see you now. Hi, Alison. Thank you for joining me. So, to recap, this is Something Like Happy, which is from Eva Woods. It's a novel and it's coming out later this year. It is a women's commercial fiction novel, and it has themes including well, there's cancer. I've given away a bit of a spoiler in that. Waving back to Alison again, but it also is all themed around that project that you all saw on the internet, which was 100 Days of Happy. So it sounds great, and I can't wait to read that one. So thank you for sending me that one, guys. Okay, next out of my post bag this week, I have. Oh, okay, now I've seen this going around on social media as well. This is The Darkest Lives by Barbara Copperthwaite. And I love Barbara because she's a really fantastic social media presence, and I know many of you absolutely love her books. I am so excited to get this, and I'm going to read you the back of it and see what it says. A mother desperate for the truth. A daughter hiding a terrible secret. Melanie Oak appeared to have the perfect life. Married to her childhood sweetheart Jacob, the couple live with their beautiful, loving teenage daughter Beth in a pretty village. Nothing can shake her happiness until the day that Beth goes missing and is discovered beaten almost to the point of death, her broken body lying in a freezing creek on the marshes near their home. Consumed with grief, Melanie is determined to find her daughter's attacker. Someone in the village must have seen something. Why won't they talk? As Melanie tries to piece together what happened to Beth, she discovers that her innocent teenager has been harbouring some dark secrets of her own. The truth may lie closer to home and put Melanie's life in terrible danger. A completely gripping psychological thriller with a twist you won't see coming. Fans of Girls on the Train, The Sister and Before I Let You Go will be captivated. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? I tell you what, this book is really heavy. It feels so much heavier than all the other books I've lifted out of the bag. I don't know if it's the paper it's printed on. It smells good too. I wonder if it conveys its like dark and gritty kind of density that comes with the book. But it's a great cover. gripping psychological thriller that's coming out soon. It is or it might even be out, The Darkest Lies by Barbara Cothaway. Thank you very much for sending that one in to me. I am looking forward to reading that one. Great, let's see what is next. Now, this is the final book in my book post this week, the books that have been sent to me. As you guys know, I'm an author. I write the Social Media Murder series, and so I get sent a lot of lovely books that I get to read and review and tell people if I like them. Oh, Alison, yeah, oh God, you sniffed a book. I book sniff. Are we weird? Totally not weird to sniff books. Definitely not weird. Maybe. If you could bottle that though, like that book smell, wouldn't that be like worth? I would wear that. I would wear that as a perfume if you could like bottle book smell. New book smell would be great. Right, last book that has been sent to me this week is Howard Linsky's The Search. Now this is out now, and I've actually read it, so it's going to be my first review this week. Alison says slightly weird about book sniffing. So, hello, Abby Jane Slater. Thank you for joining us. Right, so Howard Linsky, The Search. Someone knows where the bodies are buried. I love this cover. I actually really love this cover. Look at that. Can you see the police people doing a search walking away? Isn't that such an evocative image? And it's quite unusual because I'm so used to seeing solitary figures on the covers of crime books and psychological thrillers. To see that, and we know what that means. You know, you see that on the news, that image. I think it's a very clever cover. Now, what have we got? Oh, Abby is saying Hunting the Hangman by Howard Linsky is amazing. It is. I haven't read it yet. I've heard great things about it. Howard has been burning the candle at both ends and has 2 books out this month. I think they're both out this month. The Search is one, which is part of his ongoing series. These are set in the 1990s in the Northeast. Now, I will read you what it says on the back. Little Susan Verity went missing during the heatwave of 1976. An unprecedented amount of police resource went into finding her, but to no avail, until now. Convicted serial killer Adrian Whitlaw was always the prime suspect. He's repeatedly lied to the police about where Susan's body is buried, playing a sick game from behind bars. But this time, he says, he's telling the truth, because Adrian Whitlaw is dying. Detective Ian Bradshaw works with investigative journalists Helen Norton and Tom Carney to find the body. However, this is Whitlaw's life's work. Would a murderer at death's door give up his last secret so easily? Now, I'm going to read you the praise for Howard on the back of this. Linsky delivers a flawless feel for time and place mixed with unrelenting pace, and that's from The Times, who named him one of the top 5 thrillers of the year. Gripping and convincing, which is from Kimberly Chambers. And on the front you have a quote from Mark Bellingham, one of the best writers around. Now, if you guys just tuned in to the radio show that I hosted on BBC Three Counties, then you will be aware that Howard was part of that show, and I interviewed him. I was very lucky to interview him, and we discussed both this book, The Search, and his other book, which is Hunting the Hangman. Oh no, hang on. I've got Abby saying, "What's monkey blood?" Yeah, you have to read the book to find out what monkey blood is, because I didn't know. Can I tell them? Well, I might be in trouble with Howard if I tell you guys that monkey blood. Okay, so one of the things that I learned when I read The Search is lots of new northeastern terms, and it was very exciting because I've realised that I think the northeast is a completely different country to where I live, because it has its own language and its own kind of nuances and stuff that I'm completely unaware of. And monkey blood, and tell me if I've got this wrong, Abby, is the strawberry sauce that you put on the top of ice creams. Like, you know, if you could get like a 99 flake ice cream and you have strawberry sauce on top, it's called monkey blood. I don't know why it's called monkey blood, but apparently in the northeast that's what it is. It could be a joke. It's Howard like just winding us all up, and it's like, it's not true. It's quite possible. It's quite possible. But he has a great way of evoking place and setting, and it was very, very, very real for me. As I said, it's set in the 1990s, and I'm going to get the date wrong, and I know that if he's watching this, he will roll his eyes, because he did tell me all about it, and obviously I've read the book. But Howard is a big football fan, as are both Detective Ian Bradshaw and Tom Carney, who is one of the journalists, one of the two lead characters in this book. And they are watching, I'm going to say it's the Euro something. It's the Euro something in 1996, maybe, when this happens. I don't know. and and so there is kind of football running in the back of this as well, which really helps place it, because I think I was actually abroad in Turkey when that took place, when that kind of football thing took place, because I remember all the English people being in all the bars and shouting and cheering and all of that kind of stuff. I think we got reasonably far, or perhaps just further than we usually do. But again, it's an example of how evocative Howard is in his writing. All of these kind of little details really bring everything to life, right down to the bits where there are flashbacks in the book back to 76, where there was a heat wave, and you feel hot, you feel uncomfortable, you feel the tension in the air. And I found this book captivating. It really, really, really stuck with me. Now, it's quite interesting because the convicted serial killer in this book, Adrian Whitlaw, definitely bears some resemblances, I would say, to Ian Brady, who has obviously just passed away, taking his secrets with him to the grave, which is sad. He has not revealed where the bodies of some of his victims are. That's kind of one of the plot lines in The Search, so it feels incredibly prescient. I know that Howard didn't set out to write about Brady as such, but it's ended up being a character almost like him, and it's a fascinating insight. You have a detective who is forced to engage with this guy who basically says, this horrible serial killer, who basically says, you have to listen to my life story, my memoirs, and then if you can figure out why I killed people, I will tell you where the body is of the missing young girl. So it's a hugely tense read, and at times very dark and very disturbing. I will say that Howard does not write gore porn. There is nothing on the page that you wouldn't want to see. It is very carefully and respectfully handled at all times. There is nothing kind of sensationalist about this. It is, however, very tense and very gripping, and it kept me twisting and turning all the way through. I thought I knew who it was, then I thought I knew who it was again, then I thought I knew who it was again, and it just kept changing all the way through. It's an incredibly accomplished and clever read, and Howard is going to go on my list of people when I grow up I would like to write like. Alison saying Liverpool, Istanbul, 2006. No, it's definitely in the 90s. It was some kind of football. It was England Euro thing in the 90s, 96. I'm going to say I don't know. Somebody who knows football will tell us. Anyway, so that's Howard's book, Howard Linsky, The Search. This was sent to me and I read it and I absolutely loved it. I would definitely put it on your list. I have to say I haven't read any of Howard's previous books in this series, but this definitely works as a standalone, and I really, really, really connected with the two journalists in the centre of this book, who are Helen and Tom, and they have one of the Euro 96. Thank you, Abby. It is Euro 96. That was kind of what I said, right? That was pretty close to it. So I really connected to Helen and Tom, who are the journalists in this, who help to solve the cases and to work on it, and they have one of those fantastic will they won't they relationships, or URST as they call it in the industry, which is unresolved sexual tension, and I love ones like that, so I'm rooting for them, and I'm going to go back and read the previous books in the series because I want to know how we've got to this place, and I will definitely be looking out for the next one. And as has been pointed out to me, Hunting the Hangman by Howard is also out this month. I haven't been sent a copy of that. It's a historical thriller based on, I'm going to get it wrong, Operation Anthropoid, which it was a real-life assassination attempt during the war of one of the chief Nazis, and it's a fictionalisation of that. It's getting fantastic reviews, and hats off to Howard for writing what appear to be two fantastic books in such a short space of time and having them both out in the same month. I'm not sure if he's getting any sleep. I hope he is. Okay, so let's have a look at the next in my review pile of books that I have read this week. Oh, and Abby has very kindly told me that it was the Assassination Attempt against Heydrich, who is was a chief Nazi person. That's Hunting the Hangman by Howard Linsky. Next on the books that I've read this week and enjoyed have been The Unseeing by Anna Mazzola. Now, as I said before, me, Anna and Anne-Marie Neary are going to be appearing at Balham Literary Festival on the 10th of June, Saturday the 10th of June. I think we're on at 1:30 and I think we're in a pub, so you should definitely come, check it out. And I'm really excited to be working with these ladies because they are such fascinating writers, but we're also all writing all quite different things. So I wrote the Social Media Murder series, which, you know, contains social media and is quite cutting edge in that sense. And then we have Anne-Marie, whose last book that I just I've actually read and I'm going to review next was set in Ireland, in Ireland, kind of Northern Ireland, both before and after the Troubles, or during the Troubles. And then her next one is The Orphans, which is set in South London and I believe is a contemporary setting. And then Anna, who is writing historical fiction. Now, this is a beautiful book. This is the hardback book, but you can get the paperback as well. I have the hardback and I'm very lucky. Let me just see, she hasn't written anything rude in it. Because she has signed it for me, which is super, super, super lovely for me. Abby is telling me that she enjoyed The Unseeing as well. Do let me know, guys, if you've read any of these books, if you like them, if you've got any recommendations for me. That would be aces. Now, I don't read a lot of historical fiction. Not through any particular reason. It just isn't something that gets sent to me a huge amount, and my to be read pile is massive. But this is a historical crime book. Now, I'm going to read to you what it's about, so I don't get any of the details wrong, because that's another reason why I don't read historical crime, or definitely why I personally would never be able to write it, because I don't know what day it is now. I definitely can't remember anything that took place hundreds of years ago, and with the research that historical writers do, I find fascinating, and you know, it's an incredibly clever thing to do. Anyway, this is Anna Mazzola, The Unseeing. It is 1837 and the city streets teem with life, atmosphere and the stench of London. Sarah Gale, a seamstress and a mother, has been sentenced to hang for her role in the murder of Hannah Brown on the eve of her wedding. Edmund Fleetwood, an idealistic lawyer, is appointed to investigate Sarah's petition for mercy and consider whether justice has been done. Struggling with his own demons, he is determined to seek out the truth, yet Sarah refuses to help him. Edmund knows that she's hiding something, but needs to discover just why she's maintaining her silence. For can it be that someone with a child would go willingly to their death? The Unseeing is a vividly written novel of human frailty, fear and manipulation, and of the terrible consequences of jealousy and misunderstanding. Now, Anna used to be a criminal justice solicitor, and I always find it fascinating when you get people who understand the law, who write crime books, because you get so many more layers than you might otherwise get. You get real kind of insight. And I believe that this is based on a real case. So this is a fictionalisation of a true case. Let me see if it says in the back if I've got that right. If I haven't, then it's kind of incredible that Anna has managed to. Oh, here we go. The Unseeing is a work of fiction based on fact. All of the newspaper extracts used in The Unseeing are real, as are many of the details of the crime itself and the subsequent investigation and the trial. Okay, and I'm not going to read you any more in that historical note in case it gives away spoilers. Now, I really enjoyed this book. It was so vivid and so fascinating, and there were so many kind of differences to London that were highlighted, but also so many similarities. A lot of this is set in Newgate Prison, in the women's prison at the time, which I find very fascinating because I do, or have been doing, some work in prisons myself recently and have been into contemporary prisons. And the prison that Sarah Gale is in is a very frightening place, which I think is probably a very realistic portrayal by Anna. It is also still evocative of prisons nowadays. And there are definite kind of realities that and links that you see between what was in the past and what's still going on now, which I think is very interesting. I love like kind of the historical things, the stuff that's so similar. So the language in this is fresh. It feels like the characters, you know, they could be people that you know now. It could be a newspaper thing now, minus, you know, technology and stuff like that. All of the details are there. It was so vividly brought to life. I didn't know who did what, who knew what, and what was going on until the very final pages of this book. It was a fascinating read and so clever. I love the fact that this cover has all these stitching going on, which refers to the fact that the main character, Sarah Gale, or one of the main characters, Sarah Gale, worked as a seamstress for part of her life. And that really fits, I think, with Anna's research that she's done with this, that she stitched it so seamlessly into there. So I always believed everything that was in there was real. All of the legal details, everything like that, it felt real. It didn't feel overloaded, as sometimes you can get if you've had a well-researched novel. It just feels like a natural kind of thing. All of the details that you want are there. It's evocative, it's rich, it's emotional. I found it very distressing in places, which is a good thing, you know, to generate that kind of response, and I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to see what Anna writes next, and I can't wait to be on the panel with her at Balham Lit Fest. So The Unseeing, if you haven't checked it out, then do. You can get it in paperbacks if you want to take it along to the beach. And the next book that I've read this week, now this is a bit of an old one in the sense that it won the Man Booker Prize in 2015, but this is A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James. Now, I love this book. Let me know if you've read it. It is extraordinary, and I'm not entirely sure if I've ever read anything else like it. It is a crime book, and it is based, I'll read you the back and then I'll tell you what it's about. Okay. 7 gunmen storm Bob Marley's house, machine guns blazing. The reggae superstar survives, but the gunmen are never caught. From the acclaimed author of the Book of the Night Women comes a dazzling display of masterful storytelling exploring the near-mythic event spanning 3 decades and crossing continents. A Brief History of Seven Killings chronicles the lives of a host of unforgettable characters. Slum kids, one-night stands, drug lords, girlfriends, gunmen, journalists and even the CIA. Gripping and inventive, ambitious and mesmerising, A Brief History of Seven Killings is one of the most remarkable and extraordinary novels of the 21st century. And I would 100% agree with that. Abby is telling me that Marlon James is a genius. I would 100% agree with that as well. This is an extraordinary book. It is massive. I will show you how tiny the text is. This is a huge read. The only thing I question with this, and I know it doesn't really mean that, but it is definitely not brief in any way whatsoever. This is a big chunky read. A lot of it is written in patois. There is huge, rich, lovely language in it. I really enjoyed learning all of the different kind of Jamaican swear words like bombercloth and pussy hole. I love the fact that basically calling somebody a used tampon is a used sanitary towel is an insult. That's awesome. I'm going to try and work that into my own work or my own everyday life. If anybody pisses me off now, I'm going to call them a used tampon. That's it. And it's rich. It's vivid. I didn't actually know that Bob Marley had been shot. That there was a assassination attempt against him during 1976, and that both him, his wife, and his manager were shot. They all survived. I also didn't know that they didn't find any of the people who did it. I also didn't know that there were rumours that those people were hunted down by Rastas and executed over the years. And that is the basis for this story. But it is so much richer than that. It's quite extraordinary. I've seen some people have struggled with it, and I can see why. As I said, the language is very strong. It's a bit like reading maybe Chaucer or Irvine Welsh. Until you get used to it, you might want to read it out loud, because I always find that helps in that situation. I personally actually listened to this on Audible, which was great. They had about 7 different actors playing the different kind of points of view as they read the book. It is extraordinary in the way that he writes about violence. It is incredibly violent. This is a very, very, very violent book. There is also a large number of instances of sexual violence, though I have to say that Marlon does pull away before you see anything too graphic, or before you witness anything too graphic in terms of sexual violence. So it is very violent, but you don't get sort of sensationalist details. But the way that he writes about violence is quite extraordinary, because it's beautiful, and that sounds like a mad thing to say, but it's so kind of hypnotic, rhythmic, sort of transcendent. It really is a work of art, and I would strongly recommend you to read it if you get the chance. I became so hooked on this that when it ended on the last page, and anybody who's read it will know what I'm talking about, I burst into tears, because I so wanted what to happen happened. It's a great book. You are with lots of different points of view. It's a big read. It's got a lot of violence in it, a lot of drugs. There are lots of sex, both homosexual and cis. and it's great. You should just read it. It's absolutely brilliant. It made me want to go back and listen to all of the music that's mentioned in it, and in fact I did. And it's quite extraordinary. It's definitely one to go on your list, and it's a very worthy winner of the Man Booker Prize. So that's A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James. And the next one, I'm going to turn to my iPad, which I've plugged in so the battery doesn't die, to show you what else I have read this week. The next one I have read on my list is, let's talk about Anne-Marie Neary's one. So in preparation for appearing with Anne-Marie at the Balham Literary Festival, I have read Siren, which is by Anne-Marie. I will read you what it says about it here. This is based in Northern Ireland, or at least partially in Northern Ireland. Now, it says, Siren, he stole her life and now she wants it back. Roisin Burns has spent the past 20 years becoming someone else. Her life in New York is built on lies. A figure from her Belfast childhood flashes up on the news. Brian Lonergan has also reinvented himself. He is now a rising politician in a sharp suit, but scandal is brewing in Ireland and Roisin knows the truth. Armed with the evidence that could ruin Lonergan, she travels back across the Atlantic to the remote Lamb Island to hunt him down. But Lonergan is one step ahead. When Roisin arrives on the island, someone else is waiting for her. Now, this was an incredibly tense book and a really fascinating read. It splits at points between what happened in the past during the Troubles in Ireland, and involves what happened when Roisin is a young girl, and then what is happening on Lamb Island now in the present with this figure. It's extraordinarily twisty. I was not expecting it to go the way that it did. There's a particular part of the narrative that I won't go into masses of detail on, where I thought it was going to be something else involving a teenage girl, and then it was completely not what I expected. It's heartrending in places, but it is gripping and tense and terrifying and strong. I love Roisin Burns as a character. She's a fantastic kind of woman, and you spend a huge amount of time with her. There's a real kind of isolation that lends itself to the text from the setting, the fact that this is set on a fairly uninhabited or a smallly inhabited island, Lamb. I think it's a great read and I would highly recommend it. I'm really looking forward to reading Anne-Marie's next one. So that's Siren by Anne-Marie Neary. I've also read this week Steve Kavanagh, The Liar. Now, I appeared on Steve and Luca Vesti's show I'm going to get it wrong, I got it wrong last night when we were recording it, and I'm going to try not to get it wrong again. So it is Two Crime Writers and a Microphone, which is their podcast that they do, and I believe that the episode that I'm in is number 31, and it's going to drop tomorrow, which will be Tuesday the 30th, so you guys should go and check that out. You should also go and check out all of their podcasts that they've done, because they have had some absolutely fantastic guests on there. Pretty much anybody who's anybody has been on their show. They've I think they kicked off with Ian Rankin, they had Denise Miner the other week. I mean, it's just extraordinary, the list of guests that they've had. They have a fantastic sense of humour, they have a fantastic interviewing style, they always have interesting viewpoints on the crime writing industry and what's going on in the press that week, and I would highly recommend that you go and give it a listen. Now, for The Liar, so that's Steve Kavanagh, The Liar. Now, Steve is another one of those who works as a lawyer, so he's another one that has a particular kind of mindset and a particular insight into the industry and into how kind of the crime industry works. Though The Liar is an Eddie Flynn book, and it's book number 3, and they are set in the States, which is very interesting. And Steve, I don't believe, has ever practiced in the States. I don't know if you can practice over there, if you practice over here, but it's a really, again, it's steeped in those kind of those details and that knowledge, and you know, the world that's in the book is very much brought alive. Now, I will read you what it says on the back of this. A must-read for fans of Lee Child, John Grisham and Michael Connolly. Combining gripping action and ingenious plotting, The Liar is the brilliant new legal thriller from the author of The Defence and the Plea. It says, it takes one to know one. Who is deadlier? Leonard Howe's worst nightmare has come true. His daughter Caroline has been kidnapped. Not content with relying on the cops, Howe calls the only man he trusts to get her back. The man who knows the truth. Eddie Flynn knows what it's like to lose a daughter and vows to bring Caroline home safe. Once a con artist, now a hotshot criminal attorney, Flynn is no stranger to the shady New York underworld, or the one who believes a lie. However, as he steps back into his old life, Flynn realises that the rules of the game have changed and that he is being played. But who is pulling the strings? And is anyone in this twisted case telling the truth? A missing girl, a desperate father, and a case that threatens to destroy everyone involved. Eddie Flynn's got his work cut out in the thrilling new novel from the author of The Defence. Now, this is the first Eddie Flynn novel that I've read, and I've got to go back and read the other two because it was great and I love the character. He's really fascinating. But you can totally read it as a standalone. It works totally fine as that. He's a fantastic character. So Eddie Flynn is basically an ex-con man, which is a great setup, who's become a lawyer. He also has clear drinking problems in his past, complex issues surrounding his family life, and you feel kind of that he's trying to make up for past actions, for things that he might have done in the past. I loved it. It reminded me vaguely of The Mentalist on the telly, where they had Patrick, I can't remember his surname, who played a mentalist. Now, in the States, that means somebody who's a psychic, but he actually wasn't a psychic. He was somebody who had come out to say that he just knew how to read people, and he worked with the FBI to try and find people. Eddie Flynn vaguely reminded me of The Mentalist. He's a great character. You get some fantastic kind of details and insights into kind of cons and like sleight of hand and all of this kind of stuff. And I really want to sit Steve down and work out if he can do any of the card tricks himself that he talks about Eddie Flynn doing in this book. It makes him a great complex character. It makes him somebody that you really root for. It has kind of like the excitement of like Ocean's 11 and that sort of thing, with a real kind of tender tension in it. I have to say that I did cry at a bit of this book. I think that Steve writes incredibly tenderly, in particular about relationships between children and parents, and in this book, in the case of daughters and fathers. And it felt so real and so visceral that he did make me cry when I was reading it. That said, he also made me not put the book down. Again, I was listening to it on Audible, and I stayed in the pool one day, because I listened to it while I'm in the pool, for 30 minutes longer than I was supposed to, because I didn't want to get out, because I wanted to know what the hell happened next. It's really gripping. I would definitely recommend it. It's a fantastic one if you like kind of thrillers, you know, and it's clever, it's knowledgeable, it's a definite winner. So that's Steve Kavanagh, The Liar. That's a great read this summer. And then the last book that I have read this week is a non-fiction book called Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. Now, I follow Roxane Gay on Twitter, and she is an American academic who has a fantastic way with words. I will read you what it says about this book. Pink is my favourite colour. I used to say my favourite colour was black to be cool, but it is pink. All shades of pink. If I have an accessory, it is probably pink. I read Vogue, and I'm not doing it ironically, though it may seem that way. I once live tweeted the September issue. In these funny and insightful essays, Roxane Gay takes us through the journey of her evolution as a woman, Sweet Valley High, of Colour, The Help, while also taking readers on a ride through culture of the last few years, Girls, Django in Chains, and commenting on the state of feminism today, abortion, Chris Brown. The portrait that emerges is not only one of an incredibly insightful woman continually growing to understand herself and our society, but it is also one of culture. Bad Feminist is a sharp, funny and sincere look at the ways in which the culture we consume becomes who we are, and an inspiring call to arms of all the ways we still need to do better. This is a great read. I really, really, really loved it. Now, I understand that it may not be to everybody's taste. I think if you would buy a book called Bad Feminist, then you should definitely buy it. If you wouldn't buy a book called Bad Feminist, at least have a little look at the first chapter online and see what you think. Roxane writes in a really funny, clever, insightful way, and I think she has a really balanced view, in particular on popular culture. So she talks about 50 Shades of Grey, for example, at one point, and while she is not a fan and thinks that there are certain elements that are indeed potentially quite damaging in the book, which are arguments that I've seen across other platforms and other writers make, she also has the strength in her own belief to say that there were bits that she still enjoyed, that made her laugh, that made her feel a bit hot under the collar. And I think that that's increasingly rare in our current climate. We live in such a polarised world. You're either X or you're Y. You're pro-Trump or you're against Trump. You're pro-Brexit or you're anti-Brexit. You're Tory or you're Labour. And we kind of lack nuance. And I think that she writes with incredible nuance, particularly about popular culture. And in a world where we read so many kind of think pieces that are, I hate X because, or I think we should not watch X because, or not listen to Y because, I think having nuance in your criticisms of things is very, very, very valid and really, really, really fresh. And it's more impressive to keep doing that and keep kind of thinking of how things work and how things don't work, where things fall short and where we need to ask questions of them and where we need to ask questions of ourselves. It's a very intelligent way of writing, and it's fresh. As I said, I haven't really read anything else that carries that nuance recently when critiquing the world around us. I'm going to do the whole trigger warning thing because some of the essays in Bad Feminist do mention rape and sexual assault, and they could be potentially difficult to read. That said, there is also an essay on trigger warnings themselves and what that says about our society and whether they are a good or bad thing. I think that Roxane Gay is an incredible writer. It is also good that she is giving across a feminist text as a woman of colour. Too often we get slated that the majority of the media kind of representation, whether that's in publishing books or on kind of the television or in the newspapers for feminism, is that it is largely white women that are voicing their opinions on things. Now, that is something that we need to change, and Roxane Gay is a perfect person to start with. She is articulate, she is smart, she is well read, she's way smarter than I am, and she is a great, she's just a great writer. She's really, 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 really clever, has some really insightful things, and you should go and read her book and see how it makes you feel. See if it makes you think about anything differently. It made me think about things differently. It made me think about privilege. It made me think about the difference between the UK and the US, the difference between the UK and the US and our police forces, the difference between our race relations, the difference between the way that we absorb culture, loads of stuff. It's a great, great read and I highly recommend it. Okay, so that is all of my books that I've received this week and all of the books that I have read this week. Thank you so much for listening and joining in and sending me messages during this. I'm not going to be doing this at 7 o'clock next Monday because I'm on retreat and I'll be in France. But I will be back the week after that to let you know what's arrived while I was away and what I read while I was away. And after this video is finished, I will put a list of all of the books that are featured in today's video and where you can get hold of them. And that's probably it, I think. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you have a really nice evening. Thank you for spending time with me. Take care. Bye bye.